This session is titled Can BPM Socialize? This session is going to be chaired by Mr. V. Lakshmikant, VLK as we call him, who's the MD of Broadbridge Financial Solutions. Mr. Lakshmikant is the Managing Director, as I mentioned, of Broadbridge Financial Solutions India Private Limited. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of the US-based Broadbridge Financial Solutions, which is a leading global provider of technology-based outsourcing solutions in the financial services industry. VLK, as we call him, is a physicist by education and has over 30 years in the industry. He has started his career as a programmer, and he's been a pioneer in the development of the offshore delivery model and has been a key member in establishing and running offshore delivery centers for multinational corporations, previously with Intergraph, with DE Shaw, and with ADP, and now with Broadbridge. VLK has a successful track record, and his commitment to quality has won him many numerous accolades. In his leadership, Broadbridge has been awarded as the best startup in MNC, the second best ITS company, an award for talent management by Asia's Best Employer Award recently. VLK is also a very active member of various industry and academic forums. Without further ado, may I invite VLK on stage. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. So, really can't see too many people in the room, probably because of the lights. This is actually a very interesting session, and from a very different perspective, right? If you really think of it, if you think of a business process, you start to think of pretty much about, efficiency and doing the same thing in a better, much faster kind of a manner. And if you think about social, it's a lot more about collaboration. So to me, I think this is the intersection of process and culture in many ways, and this session is about that. So I really have a very interesting set of colleagues who will probably share a lot more wisdom than I can on this particular subject. The three colleagues that I have for this session, one is Srinivas. Srinivas, I request you to come to the stage. A very quick background of Srinivas. Srinivas is the Managing Director of Tata Business Support Solutions based out in Hyderabad. Okay, he has about 24 years of experience with companies like Steria, Satyam, and Wipro. He's handled roles in areas of business development, sales, corporate strategy, and operations for these companies. He's successfully built organizations from inception, grown businesses in new markets, and owned P&L responsibilities in global markets, including Europe, Asia, and the US. Okay. Prior to Tata Business Services, he was director and head of BPO at Steria, a European IT solution and service provider. Okay. So from I think what Srinivas is going to do is he's going to give us probably the vendor perspective of as to how vendors are providing products in this particular space. So a warm welcome to Srinivas. My next colleague on this particular panel is Pawan. I request Pawan to join us on the stage. I think you guys can be a little more generous in your applause. Okay. Thank you. Pawan, I think, is an icon in this particular industry, and he probably needs no introduction. Okay. Pawan has been the CEO of IBM Daksh. Has been responsible for 40,000 Pawan? 40,000 people. Okay, there's a lot of people actually to be responsible for. I have 2 kids, and it's very difficult to be responsible for 2 kids. So 40,000 is a huge number out there. Okay. Prior to Pawan's resume goes multiple pages. Okay, so I will talk about some of the key highlights which I found very interesting from his resume. Actually, apparently he taught physics. Okay, so very interesting for a physics person to be in the IT BPO industry. So I really don't know what kind of physics techniques that he's going to talk to us today. Okay, he's been a very active member in the industry. He's a member of the Young Presidents Organization. He's a charter member of TIE, which is an entrepreneur's organization. So obviously he has an entrepreneurial mindset. As an active angel investor, Pawan works closely with CEOs of multiple startups to mentor and guide them. Pawan is the alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and holds a master's degree in mechanical engineering from Stanford University. He is a graduate of the Advanced Management Program of the Harvard Business School. So Pawan, glad to have you in the panel. Pawan is going to give us what we call as the end user perspective. Okay. So we have the vendor, we have the end user, and whom do we have left in this whole mix? Obviously the consultant, right? So the consultant is the missing piece, but luckily we do have a consultant out here. I request Anurag to join us for this panel. Anurag represents an organization called McTranz. It's a very niche kind of a company in this space. It's a combination of a consulting company and a services company put together. He's been in this industry since 1999, worked with leading giants like Accenture, Genpact, TCS, etc. He has played many non-standard roles, especially in starting units for these companies. For example, he set up Genpact's first shared services center in Hungary, and also with TCS. Okay, he is somebody who kind of thinks ahead and always wants to kind of improve things and try out kind of new methodologies, new practices. So he's an ideal person to kind of talk of this intersection of process and culture, so to speak. Okay. So without much ado, I think the way we are going to do this session is with a panel like this, the moderator's job is very simple. The moderator's job is to look good, which I do very well. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. And so I will get out of the way. And I'll request each of the panelists to talk for about maybe 5 to 8 minutes, okay? Give their perspective, and then we'll open the field for Q&A, okay? Hopefully, as job as the moderator, I don't end up having to moderate a Lok Sabha session out here, okay? Lot more, hopefully more peace on the dais and more, agreement, okay? So since this is a very important session, like any other sessions, I would request you have your mobile phones, right? So what are you supposed to do with that? Switch. Absolutely. So don't switch it off, okay? Please don't take calls here. Kindly use it for social media. Kindly post all your posts on Twitter, on Facebook. Please say nice things about me. I don't worry too much about the panel, okay? So without much ado, I'll request Srinivas to go first, okay? And then I request you to keep this very interactive. Okay, and ask a lot of questions, and I think we'll get a lot of value out of this session. Thank you very much. So, Srinivas, over to you.
Thank you, Vijay. Good afternoon, colleagues. Social media in BPM, I think the whole BPM industry is agog with this topic over the last year or plus, and our belief is that this is going to change the way we do business, and this is going to be very integral to our strategy and our customer strategy. So let me share briefly in terms of what is our view and how we are gearing up and what do we see the world of the buyer and the clients who are selling and what is the role we play there, right? So this is my personal view. I mean, this is my personal experience from the time I bought my first car 2 decades back to the buying process which has evolved and has been migrated to my children. So if you could see how the buying process has been changing, if you see the 4 key stages are the secondary research, where you don't interact with others but have your own way of collecting data about the products, the features, and so on. So it's more based on individual research. And then you get into primary research, where you go seek opinions, influencers, coaches, people who have bought, people who have suffered, experienced, all the interactive research. And then you sit down to look at the product research, where you visit physically stores and marketplace and get a sense and make your shortlist and final shortlist, and then finally actually do the physical purchase of the product. I mean, nothing new about it. We all experienced. My dad used to buy in this manner all his life. I bought, as I said, my first car 2 decades back following this process. Then came the next wave, which is where the online search started helping in terms of doing the secondary research. You don't try to visit places, you don't try to collect leaflets, but try to do your secondary research by yourself. And this is how I bought my first home back in the US a decade back, and then went out to connect with people, get their opinions, the rest of the cycle remaining the same. Then came the third wave, with the influence of social media, and you could clearly see how 3 out of the 4 stages have been influenced, taken over, driven by the social media, collaboration, connects, and access. This is how I bought my daughter's high-priced camera 2 years back. The only reason why we did not resort to the last stage also virtually is because I was scared. We're spending $60,000 and trying to buy a camera without I feeling and touching the camera and talking to somebody whom I personally believe is the subject matter expert. So I kind of, unfortunately she had to agree because I'm shelling out the money. So I went to the store, talked to them and finally purchased, but she's done the entire research without moving from the house, and she had friends who gave her the opinion. She had all questions, answers ready from her mom and me, and this is, as I said, how I purchased 2 years back. The final stage, that's where we are today, and where all of them are being done through social media and online marketplaces. And this is how exactly I bought a smartphone for my son 2 weeks back. He's a student, he is not stepped out of the house. We decided that he needs a phone because both of us work and he's alone, and we said it's important that he stays connected. He chose the model, he got the feedbacks through social community, and he almost placed the order online. Now this is where the whole world is changing in terms of how the buyer is approaching and making the decision. So this is going to change the way customers are going to, our customers or the suppliers are going to position themselves, and how vendors like us are going to approach to support this whole process. Social media is influencing in many manners. Social search, as we saw, is significant. It is making the customer is the king more prominent now than in the past. One complaint of a client can go viral in the matter of minutes, and can require a humongous effort from organizations to bring it back to normalcy. The word of mouth, e-word of mouth is a big driver. So much so that a company like Levi's has introduced initiative called Friends Store, where you actually go online and you want to buy jeans, and your friends are all grouped together as a community, and their opinions, their buying experiences are all there, and together you collectively take decisions. So there's a huge community influence in terms of your search, choice, decisions. This is extending to the mobile, obviously, and a lot of them would like to make transactions on the mobile, taking the feedbacks. So companies are trying to see how the m-commerce gets linked to the social media influences. Just to show you some statistics where it is going, interestingly, 77% of people are making decisions based on the referrals. If you see the right side top, 32% of the ladies are looking for coupons and so on Facebook. 62% are likely to return to retailers who have a community in this thing. I mean, the difference between an online website or e-commerce site to a social enabled site is you got the community, the groups which are sharing their opinions. So the more customers see that it's a marketplace where people are able to give their positive, negative feedback, they're likely to make their decisions to buy. So what are we doing as an organization in this context? Firstly, we are trying to help customers get their strategy on what do they intend to do on social media. What is the strategy? Is it a listening strategy? Is it a placeholder? Is it a prominent place? Is it a leverage for increasing business? So we do a digital audit in terms of how an organization is perceived by their current customers, prospective buyers, their competition, the whole ecosystem, how do they perceive them as it stands today? And then try to build a strategy based on what sort of content do you want to provide on the social media platform. How do you want to influence the buying behavior? So the first is the onboarding in terms of based on strategy, first getting it ongoing. Then build the content. As I said, how far do you want to take this, so this whole initiative? How do you want to link this social media presence to your regular standard channels, whether it's your e-commerce site, your indirect purchases, your CRM internally, your enterprise software. So it can't be a standalone, it has to be far more integrated to get the optimized benefit. And finally, reputation management. I think this is the biggest challenge today for organizations. How to continuously get their reputation in the marketplace. Interestingly, we have a team which is on this listening post. We have an internal goal that in a matter of 2 hours, we should be able to get a sense across the organization any complaints of any nature by customers anywhere on the social media world. We hope to bring it down. Earlier, we used to have customer complaints taking 48 hours minimum to reach many of the management, and the response can go on from there on. We can't afford that sort of time lags anymore now. So how do you build tools? How do you build process? What is the strategy to continuously monitor the reputation of the organization? We interestingly had recently identified one of our competitors' negative feedback going viral across board, and we actually called them, sent them a message saying, go check it out. Yeah. So that's the last bit on the offers. Just quickly on a couple of examples. This is a requirement for one of the largest global multinational companies spread around 4 continents, over 70 countries and 100 plus companies, and wanted to initiate volunteering initiative where encouraging employees to come forward to put in contribute voluntary work. Now, the old system would have sent emails, the old system would have followed up in different manners, the impact wouldn't have been the same. So this initiative, we created a Facebook page for this volunteering initiative, accessed across employees, 500,000 employees through this, and in a matter of 20 days, we got 1,800 likes. So this whole initiative started and reached its stable state in a matter of 3 weeks. So that's the power of what social media can provide, and this was a very highly successful initiative. There is a lot more appreciation from the young employees on the same volunteering initiative which previously was done in the brick and mortar fashion. This is a live example of a large retail customer. Yeah, I'm done. This is my last slide. Retail customer who has done the traditional way of approaching customer support, doing the inbound, outbound sort of calling to handle and address customer issues, then migrated to building an e-commerce site. At end of 2012, they realized somewhere their whole customer feedback is dipping, whereas the product portfolio has improved. The available customer CSAT surveys are indicating more than average customer feedback, but more seems to be dipping significantly. And social media was identified as a big cause for that, where one grumbling customer posted and it cascaded, and before they realized it's 3 months plus, the whole negative feedback has gone around. So they created the social media initiative to handle customer feedbacks, customer complaints, B, to create a marketplace where they are trying to bring the inherent value of their product. So it's more a social community trying to spread the message, the positive aspect, qualitative aspect of their products and customers' experience of dealing with them. And then, of course, now they're trying to build, saying, can we have a marketplace where we can influence significantly the buying behavior? So social media is is become very integral to the strategy of customer acquisition, to customer retention going forward. That's broadly my thoughts. I will wait to hear from you all in terms of your feedbacks after my colleagues give the brief speech. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's quite interesting, the area that we're going to talk about today. I've kind of always wondered in terms of we see all these Flipkarts today and all these e-commerce companies, creating multi-billion-dollar enterprises. But I've always felt unless you can touch and feel the product that you're buying, it's, at least personally, it's not very easy for me to actually spend money and and make a purchase decision. But I guess in terms of the best way to predict the future is to create it. With that thought, well, we got to now start reimagining BPM, shared services, outsourcing, and that I guess also happens to be one of the key themes for the IOP session, which is coming up early next year. So how do we kind of start reimagining what we're doing and completely rethink in terms of what we are, the way we are conducting business and the way we're doing, running the shared services and BPO companies. While our efforts have to be, of course, the social media efforts are, of course, one is at the individual level, but also at the organization and the enterprise level. I understand that I think you would agree that the effort and the whole initiative has to be around how to kind of go out and relate this with more and more client acquisition, more customers, for our respective businesses. Okay, just to give you a quick brief in terms of what we do. So McTranz, we're not like PwCs or the ATKs of the world, but highly specialized in what we do. We started off about 3 years ago. This is basically, and I'd like to kind of, give you a little flavor in terms of from my 18, 19 years of corporate life, then last 3 years as an entrepreneur, plus the consulting kind of perspective. So this is something that we've recently started as far as the diversification into the social media. So McTranz is a specialized BPM shared services and a consulting advisory. Like I said, we've recently added on the private targeted social media networks. What that means is, so one of our key value propositions is this is a team which is basically who's done it themselves on the ground, have actually ran BPM shared services business in different capacities across the globe. You will see the team is, of course, made from pretty strong credentials from Accenture, Genpact, and some of our clients include, you would have perhaps heard of a company called Ceridian. We work with the Tatas, some of the SME companies, which are India-based BPO companies. So we would kind of help them in different various capacities, right from advising on the shared service strategy, the location strategy, the business case analysis, complex transformation programs, including some of the robotics kind of work that, and then of course a fair amount Six Sigma and process improvement kind of work. On the social media side, we've got Adidas and Cadbury Schweppes, besides some of the others that we will talk a little more in details. So you would see that, well, this is something that in terms of these are two areas that okay, as we look at the whole digitization journey, the first generation was, of course, when we started on our collaboration in terms of the basic messengers of the world, the MSN. I remember my days when we used to kind of hooked up for US calls using Yahoo messengers and some of the other messengers that we used to use. Then came the second generation, which is about all these various social media platforms, which is right from our the Twitters of the world to Facebooks and then of course the Instagrams and LinkedIn. Now, where do we move next from there? Now, here is where, and I think probably, and I'd like to get some of your views as well from the audience, If you are now looking at where do we go next, now here is something that we've recently partnered with a Singapore headquartered company, and this is in my desire to kind of always being hungry for doing new things and innovating new things, etc. So here's something which is basically private targeted social media networks. Anyone familiar in the audience? Okay, somewhere closer. So here's what it does is in a nutshell. So you've got the LinkedIn, the Facebook, the Twitter, and the Instagrams. So all four, are probably some more of the others there, right? What you do today is in terms of you are limited by by what you can do with these respective channels. So let's say today, if you're a marketer, for example, Cadbury's, right? You are limited to go to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and pay some good amount of investments. And there's only this much you can do, and they give you limited control, they give you limited space, etc., and then therefore the limited reach as well. Now here's what we've done is basically we've kind of integrated and all of these channels, all of these platforms into a centralized platform, which is being called the private targeted social media network. Yeah. And what this helps you do is this helps you actually you control your brand better and monetize your brand better. Yeah. And there's a whole amount of excellent dashboards that gets generated as a part of this, looking at really now as the third generation social media networks. And the beautiful thing is that this is not just meant for the individual user level, but also enterprise level of any size and scale. And this is a very good integration between television, your mobile phones, both the smartphones as well as the feature phones, and then of course you're integrating into your websites. Okay, so like I said, well, it's if you probably, any guesses how many times an average human being looks at your mobile phone per day? Doesn't take. Okay, so I guess that's where unfortunately our kids are moving to, which is where I always discourage my son and daughter. In fact, I tell them that after 8 p.m. it's all family time. There's no screens absolutely in the house. So average person, the recent study looks at about 200 times that you actually look at your cell phone. Yeah, and obviously it will vary. There'll be variances in terms of the age groups, etc. Now, having said that, well, you're looking at like I mentioned, how do you kind of monetize and control your brand better through this centralized platform? So I think this is one of the wonderful things that I'm personally excited about as well. You might have heard probably some similar smaller versions of this kind of a targeted private social media network, but this is one of its kind, does wonders, and have got in fact some excellent client interest and the results in terms of the client reach and the. So I think where do we think that today, the theme that can BPM socialize? Well, yes, in fact, yesterday I was sitting in these opening sessions by Keshav and Mr. Chandrasekhar, and very clearly I think it's not a question that can BPM socialize. Well, today we've got this this strong equity and strong heritage as India and NASSCOM and as the industry, where we take care and look after all the back end of the global social medias of the world, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebooks. So I think here is where we kind of just need to identify and kind of bridge more and more opportunities, how we can kind of leverage this capabilities that we already providing to the world to actually being in the front end and being in the forefront to be able to say that yes, definitely BPM can socialize. Any questions that you have?
We will take questions later.
Okay. Anything around this? These. Okay. Thank you very much.
There's no PowerPoint here. I decided that I'll kind of liven things up a little. And let me give you a little background. A couple of years back, there was a musician who was traveling by United Airlines, and he had a Gibson guitar. If you're a musician, a Gibson guitar is a very expensive guitar, something you're very passionate about. And he was carrying it in the cabin, and he was told to check it in. And he said, listen, this is my Gibson guitar, I'm going for a concert. And they insisted that he check it in, and then there was a problem. So he made a video, and we're going to play the first 60 seconds of this video. It's nice music, so hopefully you'll enjoy it.
United Airlines on my way to Nebraska. The plane departed Halifax, connecting in Chicago's O'Hare. While on the ground, a passenger said from the seat behind me, my God, they're throwing guitars out there. The band and I exchanged a look, best described as terror, at the action on the tarmac, and knowing whose projectiles these would be. So before I left Chicago, I alerted 3 employees who showed complete indifference towards me.
So the long and short of this is that this video went viral, and it got 14 million hits, right? And he just goes about his entire customer service experience with United. He called them up, they didn't give a damn, and so he said, I'll make a video. He said, do what the hell you like. What will a video do? And next, you have a lovely song. We were all kind of dancing to it, and yet it is highly critical of the customer service he got. And this is what the world of social media is all about. I think it is immensely powerful, and at the same time, it absolutely terrifies the leadership of companies, because you cannot control the message, right? And we are all used to working in organizations where we can send a very controlled message out through a press release, through our engagement with employees, with customers, right? So it's just a fascinating experience. Let me relate an Indian example. So a little while back, I was, in a session with Swapan Sept. Swapan Sept is a very well-renowned guy in the advertising space. And he was getting onto a flight, Indigo Airlines flight, and it was running late. And on Twitter, he posted, highly critical comments, what a lousy airline, the plane is late, et cetera, et cetera. And then he gets onto this aircraft, and he's traveling. Now, Indigo was monitoring this in the back end, and they realized, listen, this post is there. Swapan was a friend of the CEO there, Aditya Ghosh. By the time he landed, there was someone receiving him and saying, sir, the scheduled arrival time of the flight was so-and-so. Look, you're on time. Why did you post, such a negative comment about us? And he retracted. Now, here is an organization which was, very, very proactive in seeing what's going on, and converted a customer who was unhappy into one, who posted a retraction. And to the rest of the world, it was amazing that here is a high-profile guy who's saying that, he actually had a pleasant experience. So I think what is unique about social media is the velocity with which your message goes around and how you have to deal with it. I think it's a very uncomfortable place for most of us. But if you can manage to deal with it, it can really change your biggest critics into your most loyal customers. That is what we've seen even in the customer service industry. I'll give you an example of one or two other companies. British Telecom. BT regularly trolls through all the social media sites to see what are people saying, and then posts solutions to their problems out there. Now, sometime back, we had the London riots. And what BT found was that its 999 network, 999 is the equivalent of the 100 service in India, right? When you call emergency services. It was completely getting slammed, and people who had a genuine problem were not able to reach the police, etc. So they posted a message out on Twitter saying that, listen, please only use 999 if you really got an emergency, otherwise use social media. And suddenly the wait times dramatically fell. So here is an example in real time where you can use social media, right, in a crisis situation, right? Similarly, they had a Paddington fire. Paddington, one of their network stations, caught fire and got flooded, and there was a service interruption. Now, obviously, their call centers will get flooded with calls from consumers saying, hey, listen, this is not working. They took photographs of that fire, of the flood, posted it online, and said, listen, we know this is down, you're going to face an interruption. So proactively, customers knew that this is happening, and so didn't call in. And then when it got fixed again, they posted it. A company like BT is considered a fairly slow-moving company. But here, taking advantage of social media, they're really reaching out and being a lot more fleet-footed. And that is something which I think companies can really leverage. Another interesting example, and this is in the politics space, and all of us have kind of seen it up close, is the last general election, where all organizations, but especially the BJP and Narendra Modi, used it so effectively and continues to do that, where he's flattened the 50 layers of hierarchy between a common man and him. And whether he's now he's with the Japanese president, sipping tea, or he's with the Chinese premier, he will continue posting on Twitter, and it almost feels like you're connected to the guy, right? So this is really the power of social media. But at the same time, I think there are a lot of pitfalls, right? One is that if you are posting your typical corporate message, it's not going to work. You got to be a little more controversial, if you may, because that is really what flies in that. And this is what I think most companies find it difficult to do. Second is speed is of the essence. As you mentioned, in 2 hours, if you do not react on social media, it has gone viral and kind of, life is on the other side. So those are some of the experiences: rapid response time, proactive content, and you have to avoid the negative spirals. So that's been my experience. I thought, this will be helpful. Happy to kind of join the Q&A if you have any closing comments, VK. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, gentlemen. I want to very quickly kind of summarize. I think Srinivas talked about how it's now become an integral part of the business. There's no longer like, is it relevant? It's absolutely relevant. And then I think Anurag spoke about how you can actually aggregate the various sources and then provide actually value through a kind of a private kind of a network. And Pawan talked of the velocity. I think the key is that it's happening so fast that I think being a physicist, obviously you have to use a physicist term here, right? So the velocity is a key thing. So those were the 3 key takeaways that I took out, and open now for questions from you all. Thank you.
Do you want to address it to someone? I mean, so what you're saying is customer service is moving from voice to...
Well, it is shifting. Is there a significant shift? Probably not. So for example, from 2 years back, where 90% used to be voice and the rest is to be email chat, we're slowly seeing the social media taking some portion of that voice out. Our goal is at least 25% in the next 2 years should be on the social media. So customers are preferring that. It's cost-wise, it's much more affordable. And even the customers are asking, saying, can you build that channel proactively? So from a reactive, I think it's going to become proactive one. Yes, it is definitely shifting.
I saw some data yesterday. It's about 1.5% in terms of the overall pie, but growing at 80 to 90%. So very small, but growing very rapidly. The other channels are, going slowly, relatively. Yeah, question is whether we are controlling it or frankly, this is reality. Either you adapt to it or you perish. My sense is the latter is what is happening.
Well, my question is to all of you. There was one cited example for Indigo and another one wherein we were talking about getting the comments retracted and responding within 2 hours or whatever the turnaround time is. What I'm going to ask you is, social media is all about conversations, no matter whatever network it is. At the end, as an organization, be it a BPM, be it a non-BPM, are we actually listening and monetizing those conversations? And if you're doing that, what are the key measures and what are the key metrics you're looking at? And when we look at, when we look at listening to these conversations, are we actually converting them with the ratio of sentiment, or probably what kind of negativism, or are we actually looking at positioning ourselves like we position on the marketing level? And is the positioning same on the online-based level? So this has 3 questions. One, what are the key areas you're looking at when you listen to these conversations, rather than just asking them to retract it? Second, are we actually looking at monetizing them? And third, are we looking at, in future, how can you position yourself online based on your marketing strategy?
Well, my sense would be in the BPM industry. Well, I think we've kind of we are yet not there. We are in a very early stages versus some of the marketing-oriented companies like P&G, Levers, etc. They do huge amount of listening, huge amount of analytics out of this, which is what a lot of our BPO businesses, in fact, support the analytics and the listening part of it. At different scales, from startup scales to SMEs to large corporations like Accenture, IBMs, and of the world. So I think in the BPM space, we've yet to kind of get there in terms of the listening effectiveness as well as and thus the monetization. So I think we need to kind of, and this is what essentially needs to be driven by our respective social media / marketing strategies. What direction and what horizon that we need to go with. But I guess also at the same time, like Pawan mentioned earlier, the question that we really need to ask is, do we need to continue to go at the supersonic speed of the way the world is moving as far as social media is concerned, our kids, our generations, and across countries? Or are there some benchmarks, certain kind of thresholds that we can we need to put in place? Personally, I feel yes, because there's all kind of stuff which goes on the social media unabated, without any any thresholds, without any benchmarks. So I think some kind of governance need to come in at different layers across industry verticals, and then of course the respective organizational bodies as well. Yeah. One of the key examples is that in fact we were chatting the other a couple of days back. LPO, which is from Pawan's side, well, LPO business is quite not very encouraging to the social media for obvious reasons, right now. Yeah. So I think the answer is yes. Well, we definitely to all 3 questions, but yeah, we probably need to draw lots of learnings from what's happening in the other industry verticals versus the BPM space.
My view is this is a young space and it is evolving. Some companies do a better job. So take Dell for example. When Dell uses Twitter very actively, and every Twitter campaign, they actually figure out how much is the net increase in sales because of that. So there have been Twitter campaigns that Dell has done where there's been $2 to $3 million of additional sales that they are able to correlate directly to that campaign. Right? If you take the BT example where Paddington went down, if they were able to avoid 10,000 calls, and let's say it takes £5 to service a call, that's £50,000 saved. So companies are kind of figuring out what is either the cost saving or the revenue increase. But I think the bigger issue over here is companies are very, very focused on what is the brand impact because of social media, both positive and negative. And that, I guess, the advertising guys probably have a better sense of how to kind of quantify that.
But the thing is, when usually social media companies go for pitching in for a client, the answer what we usually get is, it doesn't matter. We'll probably look into it. It's not much of a headache. But the examples which you're citing are mostly international, not Indian. So I know Indian economy is yet to open up, but
yeah, I think just to set the kind of base context, I mean, we really were referring to social in the context of the BPM industry. A lot of that servicing the international listing. But I'm happy to get into a separate one-on-one or with any other panel separately after the session, just to be a little mindful of time. But yeah, I mean, your point is certainly taken. So any other questions?
Yes. So just to add to that, I think it's about us in terms of there are both kinds of businesses. One who really care about it and they would get back to you, and the ones who kind of just say, okay, fine, we will, we will get back kinds, right? So I think it's a lot of ownership lies on us also, where we don't let that ball drop. Let's say, and I think it's even one interaction can kind of make a difference. Yeah. So you must not compromise. You must not accept. If you do not get the answer till the time you reach, let's say if it is a consumer company, nodal officer, super nodal officer, circle head, etc., etc. Let's say if it's a telecom company,
I think we are running out of time, so we'll take one last question.
One last one.
And then the panel is available later.
So this is more like seeking perspective in terms of, cobbler making shoes for his own children. So it's about, not about organization trying to take cues about customers and their preferences, but more in terms of organization and employees. And this thought of, opening up the social media for employee basis. As of today, all of us are fairly large in size. A lot of us have gone into the social media for our employees. And their experiences, and it's still at a nascent stage, and there have been experiences on both sides. Some folks have burnt fingers. We know of common examples, and there are some folks who have derived benefits by opening it up for large employee bases. So 2 questions. One is, as you were mentioning, Pawan, that a lot of points of caution. So when it comes to large employee bases, which direction should we be moving when it comes to social media? More importantly, which are the points of caution? So that's question 1. And question 2 is, all of us, again, have large employee bases. Is that a good laboratory to test? Because phenomena are pretty fast and strong. They snowball into larger proportions. So do we have in-house laboratories where we can test things and then derive some learnings out of it and apply it outside with our customers?
So I think as far as large organizations or even any sized organization using social media for the employees, what companies have done is they've used tools which are internal to the company, not using, let's say, a Facebook, right? IBM uses a tool called Beehive. I'm sure other companies have other tools. I mean, it could be anything, right? And social media can be very, very effective internally within a company, as long as it's restricted there, because there is a big concern around confidential information, customer names, proprietary information leaking out, right? So companies have tried it, they've found it to be very rewarding. So that would be my thing. And
also, just to add to Pawan, I agree that we have actually used a contextual collaboration tool internally for nearly 50% of our 12,000 people strong organization, just to test it, as you rightly said. Do we open up them over Facebook? Probably not. It's because we're talking about average age of 22 years. Having the maturity, consistency is a big question mark. So we actually implemented an in-house collaboration tool. It is huge positive response. Acceptance is much better than any knowledge repository, any other tool we would have implemented in the last few years. Now that's a good test bed. Having said that, it can't stay internal. It has to somewhere go connected to the external world. We have ex-employees, we have potential customers. So we do have opinion leaders, thought leadership encouraged to be posted. Yes, parallelly we are also running in terms of what are the do's and don'ts, what are the implications. We do face challenges time to time. But I think this is an area is rather absorbed by organizations sooner than later and address the challenges as they face up there.
I just kind of define the comment on this is, if you're a publicly limited company, you have disclosure norms, okay? So you need to be very careful as to know what your people post, okay? So that's why you will see very large companies have a very strong or rigid social media policy. But my opinion on that is it's like riding on the tiger, okay? That you really have to, hold it at some point in time, okay? So thank you all. It's been a round of applause to the panelists here. Thank you for your time.